This fight is going to deliver a performance bonus for one of these two guys because you have Borz, Khamzat Chimaev, taking on a short notice up-and-comer, Rhys McKee, Skeletor. Listen, he's done it on the regional scene, whether it was with BAMMA, whether it's with Cage Warriors. This is a guy that can finish fights, representing Northern Ireland, a training partner of Norman Parker you saw recently with KSW. I know it didn't go his way in the trilogy fight with Mateusz Gamrot, but it was still a really good one. I could not be more excited about this fight. There's so many different layers because Cage Warriors, only a few days ago, I get the notification on my phone. Hey, we're coming back in September. Here's the lineup. Big names. Webb. We got McKee. We got our heavy hitters. We're throwing the kitchen sink at you. Mason Jones is going to be fighting. And I thought, that's awesome. And then like 2 days later, they go, yeah, okay, Rhys McKee's getting called up to the UFC. Oh, who's he going to fight? Khamzat Chimaev.
Not a great
All right, well, Khamzat Chimaev, for what it's worth, maybe he missed his last fight. Let's go over his resume before that. So at the time, he was 6-0, finishing everybody with Brave. His work on the feet's great. Switch stances, trains at All-Stars, Reza Madadi, Alexander Gustafsson, and on and on and on. He's favored to win the fight against the Welsh wrecking machine, John Phillips. I'll say this about John Phillips. He's kind of like if you had an entire hardware store and it got caught up in a tornado. He's going to throw everything at you. You got some saws, you got some hammers. You don't know what's going to come at you. It's going to hurt, and it's going to be wild. And that's what you got in the fight against Khamzat Chimaev. A little Home Depot action. He went out there real quick and threw a drywall hammer at him and totally whiffed on it. Chimaev, level change, took him down. You'd be hard-pressed to, let me know when the last 10-7 was scored. I know you can dig it up on Twitter, whatever. One of the judges scored that fight a 10-7, or the first round for Khamzat Chimaev. John Phillips looked like a fish out of water. He looked like a turtle on his back. Go back a week or two ago. That's what we said was going to happen if he was on his back. And it did happen. Everybody's comparing Khamzat Chimaev to a middleweight Khabib Nurmagomedov. Now, it's important because he was going to stick around on Fight Island, stay fresh, wanted to fight in the next couple of weeks. Boom, insert Rhys McKee, a guy who's fought at 55, a guy who fights at 70 now. Really young guy. One of his wins over a guy that we just talked about, Jai Herbert, who's taken on Massaranduba, Francisco Trinaldo. There's a lot to like about Rhys McKee because he can get into a dogfight. He can get into that kind of striking battle. But oh, by the way, he has really slick jiu-jitsu. And I think for Rhys McKee, perfect opportunity to get into the UFC. I think there's a lot of winnable fights for him. I think he has a high ceiling too. And I know the crowd's going to go with Khamzat Chimaev. And I know that, we can't pay him enough compliments. If you look over on Tapology, out of 745 votes, 96% going Chimaev, 60% by submission. I know in the comments you're going to say, Khamzat Chimaev, big deal, and he's going to win this fight. And I agree with you. I really do. But I think both of these guys have high ceilings, and I know that everybody's really high on Chimaev. He's the biggest favorite on the card. If you look at it in terms of the odds, he's what? A minus...
1,100.
Yeah, minus, well...
On some sides.
1029 or 1030 is the average on Tapology. For Rhys McKee coming back, a plus 650. So I get it. I understand that. Khamzat Chimaev right now looks like he's top-tier talent. A lot of people were saying, he should be fighting a top 15 guy next.
Calm down.
That's insane. You have to build him up.
Okay, I agree with everything you said except for one of them. This is the worst way for Rhys McKee to get into the UFC. You said this is a great way. No, this is terrible. Because
it's a shot. It's a shot.
It's a shot, but it's not a great one. And if I took a shot in the dark, I'd probably kill somebody. And that's probably the case with Rhys McKee because Rhys McKee would be able to get into the UFC no matter what. That's the thing. If you're a Cage Warriors champ, it's not very hard to get into the UFC. We've seen a lot of them make that transition, and a lot of them have varying levels of success, but still. Rhys McKee's one of the more recognizable names, too, from Cage Warriors. They don't market him for no reason at all. He has a very exciting style. There's a bit of a problem, though.
There's a bit of a problem. BAMMA champ, not Cage Warriors champ. So
bad.
for his two losses, I just want to point to them really quick. Terry Brazier's one of them. You see him with Bellator. He was a double champ with BAMMA. He's had decent success with Bellator. I know he's got a loss peppered in there. And Tim Barnett, well, Rhys McKee went out and beat Tim Barnett after that. So continue.
But again, Tim Barnett was 3-0 at the time when he had lost that fight. So Rhys McKee, there is a big upside to him. I just don't think this is it. Because if you're fighting Chimaev, who we just saw, not only beat a middleweight, but a big middleweight at that. And I do think the size is something that's really important because Rhys McKee's built like me. His nickname's Skeletor for a reason. He looks like, what was our comment once? Chris Evans before he gets the superhero serum to turn into Captain America. And with Chimaev, he was able to just completely ragdoll a huge middleweight in John Phillips. And a guy who, yes, he's got his wrestling, Achilles heel, if you will. I just think if you're able to do that against a massive guy, against Rhys McKee, yes, the striking is going to be a little bit more of an issue for you if you are Chimaev, because with Phillips, he's going to throw those big bombs and just kind of hope to land, and if he doesn't, there's not much else he can do. Rhys McKee will be able to kind of set up his shots, go from there. But here's the problem. He's not going to have time to set up his shots or do any of that. Chimaev's just going to go out there power. This is one of the few fights I can tell you exactly how it's going to go. Rhys McKee's going to throw one punch. Chimaev's going to take him down and just dominate him on the ground. I'm not completely on the hype train yet, just because beating John Phillips, I got to be honest, doesn't really tell me that much about you. Beating Rhys McKee on this short of notice isn't going to tell us a lot about Chimaev, but if he can go out there and ragdoll his second opponent in 10 days, there's going to be just a rocket strapped to his back. And I don't want to see him fight a ranked guy yet. I do think you need time in the UFC to be able to fight those guys, because when you're going up to that point to fight, guys with numbers next to their names, it's not just about how good you are, it's how good your game plan is, how good your cardio is, because you're going to get tested in every single one of those fights. I don't think Chimaev's going to get tested in this fight. I think he's going to absolutely run over Rhys McKee, which is unfortunate to see, because I do think McKee has a pretty high ceiling in this division moving forward. I just think it's going to be too much for him.
And that's where I'm coming at. I mean, with Fight Night picks, we like to give a good account of both fighters. It's not fair to just come out the gates and say, hey, Khamzat Chimaev 100% going to win. No dice Rhys McKee has a shot. Rhys McKee has a shot, and there's different reasons why. Again, he can get into a dogfight, and the perfect example of that is somebody that maybe you've never heard of. Perry Goodwin is one of those guys with cage words. If you can beat him, then you're going to move forward in that division. If you can't, Alexander Jakobsen, perfect example, gets a win there, big deal. Perry Goodwin is a tough test, and he was able to last, gets a third round finish against him, beat Hacken Foss, who, I mean, what do you get out of beating him? Not a whole lot. You don't really learn a whole lot. I think that, it's probably going to be a runaway win for Khamzat Chimaev. Again, pump the brakes just a little bit. I think he looked amazing in that John Phillips fight. I know he was, a darling after that one, and his post-fight interview was amazing. So Khamzat Chimaev, if he gets a win here, again, okay, short notice John Phillips, discounted a bit, 185, well, that is a big deal. You beat Rhys McKee at 70. All right, well, what do we really have here? I think if you match him up again, it's got to be a 20 to 25 type of guy. It can't be anybody that's, on the bubble of 15, because we're talking about a guy that has 8 pro fights. And I think he's amazing. And again, I play devil's advocate in this one, so I look like a bit of a bad guy. Let me say this. Khamzat Chimaev's ground game is insane. His submission setups are awesome. His ground and pound's great. He can switch from guard to half guard to side control. Amazing. His passes are awesome. And on the feet, that's the part that you didn't get to see in that John Phillips fight, because he can set things up with his hands. I think he's a better, bigger version of Rhys McKee, and for that reason, I think he's going to win this fight.
Oh, I agree 100%. Again, Rhys McKee's wrestling, it's not like it's bad by any means. It's just when you see what Chimaev was able to do against a guy who probably weighed like 200 pounds by the time he stepped in the cage, John Phillips, you can just imagine what he's going to do against a guy who, Rhys McKee's not a massive 170er. He's built kind of like Neil Magny. That's the best way of describing it. But even Neil Magny's got a little bit of thickness over McKee. So it just, I think physically, Chimaev's just going to be a lot for a lot of guys to deal with at 170. Moving forward, again, I don't want to see him fight like Demian Maia or anything like that. And it's not that his grappling's on that level, because it is kind of a different style of grappling, but he is an absolute problem for anyone that they give him moving forward.
I'm really looking forward to this fight, Matt. 2 really good prospects coming up. Khamzat Chimaev, Rhys McKee, both going with Chimaev in this fight. You're not going to want to miss the rest of our predictions for the card. We have 14 others, including an extended look at Whittaker and Till in our main event. Keep locked in with Fight Night Picks, Matt. As we always say, let's get into it.